Hey, what's up Skippers, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we will share with you guys a 6 months update of the Aquarium Co Op filter versus the Qanvee filter. So without further ado, I'm just going to pan this around. So over here we have the Aquarium Co Op box. So these are the large sponge filters that we use, and recently we have been trying a lot of different methods and different filters. And what we actually have over here, this is actually the first two tanks that we made the comparison against the Aquarium Co Op filter versus the Qanvee filter. And the 6 months update is that you can actually see that both the tanks of both these stream tanks are actually doing fairly well. So if you ask me if there's any difference between this tank and this tank in terms of clarity, I don't see any big difference, because from the side, so between the left and right, it looks similar. And if you look through this side, you can actually see all the way through to the other side of the tanks. So actually from here we can actually say that the Aquarium Co Op filter works as well as the Qanvee filter. However, what we can also see that we probably would want to replicate this. So we actually have one more tank over here that has the Co Op filter. So all of these tanks, you can actually see that they are very clean, and they have been running for 6 months at least. So this one has one Co Op filter, this one has two Qanvee filters, this one has a Co Op and a Qanvee filter. So basically all these three tanks, you can actually see all these three tanks are doing quite similarly well, and all of them have different streams. And the streams for this one will be the purple metallic orange eye. We have the red devils over here, and we have the black fancy tigers over here. So all these three tanks are slightly different in the sense that this has the fluvastratum, the biostratum soil. This one has the ADA version 1, and this one has the biostratum as well. So all the soil that has been used, we have mosses, we have no mosses, we have mosses over here without maybe a small plant. But however, I think all of this, basically more or less, we can tell that the Co Op filter works as well as the Qanvee filters in terms of filtration. So I think a lot of hobbies and breeders, they are afraid that, because the Co Op filter is a very coarse type of filter versus the Qanvee, which is a very fine type of filter. So regardless whether they are fine or coarse, I think the methodology and the background and the understanding of how to actually create and maintain a clean tank, it's more important than comparing, what kind of filters they are. There is, however, one disadvantage of the Co Op filter that we actually picked up during the power outage, is that it actually requires more power to actually drive this using a battery pack. So which means that this one still is able to actually run. However, we cannot tell that how much filtration actually goes through that weak input. So what we can say is that the Co Op filter actually works as well as the Qanvee filter. So I think regardless whether you want to choose the Qanvee filters or the Co Op filters, from a reliability standpoint, I think both are fairly okay. However, one thing to note is that the reason why we are looking for a better filter or another filter that is two things actually. One is the flow. So the flow on this one works perfectly. It requires more power in the sense. Second thing is that in terms of maintenance, this one will probably be much easier. For this one, the sponge on the Qanvee eventually breaks down, and every time when we tear or when we start to remove them from the socket or from the arm of the filter, it breaks off. So the sponge actually gets weaker and weaker, softer and softer, and it doesn't comes back up again. So in terms of stream liveliness of the stream, and we can actually pan and then see and then compare between all these tanks. Maybe I'll just make it closer. You can actually see that all the streams are really, doing well. Though these are in ADA soil, and this is in stratum. So you can actually see that the streams are actually doing okay. There is no side effect of using any of these filters, so I think they are fairly well. Just going to pan to the last one over here, just can let you see, guys. You guys see the Black Fancy Tiger. So they are all fairly, looking well, and this, we haven't get this done yet. And over here we have another tank for co-op. We have yet another tank for co-op. We have actually tried a lot of tanks with co-op filters, and we are actually quite pleased to say that with the amount of tests that we have done. So basically we have a lot of tanks, and we want to use a lot of tanks to do the test, and before we actually give the results, because it is important to have a larger sample size to actually give you more credibility, in the sense that you do not just test on 1 or 2 and then you say that, okay, the co-op filter is good. So we have tested tremendous amount of tanks, and I'm sure a lot of breeders have also tested it as well. For in terms of the advantage of a co-op filter, I would say that number one, the flow. The flow is really crazy. So we can really crank this up, and then you can actually see that the water flow is really good. There's no gargling sound, but over here again, the Qanvee filter has a limited amount of flow that we can actually drive. So do streams require a lot of flow? Technically, actually, they do not really require a lot of flow. However, flow actually helps to bring nutrients to the entire tank. It gives a very good circulation, and it also brings, dead spot or any diseases that actually can harbor in dead spots to actually go towards the filter. So you can see that there's a lot of tests over here. We have done so many tanks with the co-op filter, both having a hybrid, meaning that one co-op and one Qanvee, and it's still working. So there's a lot of streams over here. You can actually see that they are all swarming, and yeah, so you guys can actually guess what they are actually feeding. I'm just gonna go a little bit nearer so that you guys can actually see what am I feeding. Right. So yeah, so very good. I would say that the if you ask me what would I buy next in terms of filtrations, I would definitely choose the co-op filter, not because that I know Corey and then we get along well, and I kind of like say that his filter is better, but in terms of the background, the information, and the depth of how it's being driven, I think that is fairly critical. And that actually, so as long as, number one, the streams are doing fine, they're doing well. Number two is that maintenance would be easier. Number three, the sponges doesn't tear off after a year or two. I think that's what we would like to look at in terms of a sponge filter. Are there other options out there? Definitely there are other options out there, but a green filter, I would say that, like the Qanvee ones, a green filter is very difficult to come by. For this type of filter, we often get it in gray or black, many kinds, but what we like is the green ones, and of course we are able to modify it as well. So as you can see, the stream, because our tanks are very short over here, so we customize all of these tanks to 30 cm height. And for those who have a much higher tank, then of course then you do not need to modify like I did. The reason why we did this modification is so that, number one, it actually helps with the height, so we can use the air leaf, the plastic, the PVC plastic on the air leaf without having to cut. Number two is that because of the sponge, the density of the sponge is fairly coarse, so when we kind of like compress it much smaller or much shorter, it actually increases the density per square cm. So, but it doesn't affect the flow, because the flow is being driven by how powerful your air pump is. So again, for those who are not sure, we use a Fujimax air pump. It is running at 27 to 28 watts. It's actually sufficient to actually two of those pumps can actually drive 150 outlets of air in a room. So there's no problem. So I've mentioned, the summary for this is that really good filter. We have tested it significantly over a course of period, multiplied by a lot of tanks, and we believe that in the next phase we will start to get more of this co-op filters to do a hybrid on these big tanks, and then on the small tanks we are actually doing some tests over here on the smaller tanks, and I'm just going to walk through there and then show you guys about a smaller tank that is over here. You can actually see these are the smaller tanks, and these are all running on co-op filters, so they are running well, so there's no issues on that one. Just that over here as well, these are all co-op filters we are running, except for this one. This is still a Qanvee. You can actually see that the streams are still doing well in there, so it doesn't really quite matter whether is it coarse or is it fine. I think both works well. So in terms of the filtration, I would still, right now I would think from a maintenance standpoint, durability standpoint, I would still opt for the co-op filter. So I think there are other ways. I think many people are asking, can we actually use this airlift to actually be fitted onto the Qanvee filter? I think that can also be done, but however, while we fix the flow rate, the flow, but the sponges is still not the desired sponge that we actually wanted. So the desired sponge is something that is able to quickly flow out during a wash or maintenance, versus having to squish this for countless of minutes, and even having to invest in a washing machine to actually wash it. But over time, the washing machine actually destroys the sponge material, and back to square one, we have to then again buy more of these fittings and these sponges, and then it defeats the purpose of a low-cost option. Because having a low-cost option, like for example a sponge filter, is considered a low-cost option in terms of filtration against, if let's say we are comparing against a hang-on or a canister filter, a sponge filter is definitely a lower cost option. And while it is a lower cost option, but we also wanted to have a much better, much stronger, and much more durable one that can actually last for a much longer time, versus every 2 years we have to change the sponge, we have to do this and that. So yeah, I really like the flow of the co-op filters. You can actually see again, you can actually see that the flow is really smooth and it glides through. And for the Qanvee, it kind of like throws out at the right angle. So the whole idea over here is that the right angle does not work well in terms of the flow. It actually defeats it reduces the flow rate. So yes, thank you guys for watching this video. I have given this update in 6 months, and probably in the next round we will give an update much further down the line, and then we will see what will happen in terms of the summary, the conclusion that we have right now. I would say that it fits on all the check boxes that we actually wanted. So thank you guys for watching. For those who like this video, please remember to give a thumbs up, and for those who are new to this channel, please remember to subscribe. And until next time, peace out.